Good evening, and thank you for tuning into this live stream. And thank you for being up maybe late wherever you are in the world, or very early, depending also on where you are. We just wanted to do this live stream to talk about a few very important updates that we've had today. On this day, February 17th. Recently, the federal members of parliament met for an emergency debate, which resulted in a vote. And this vote was just to put forward a plan. The motion was to actually not make any decisions, but just to have the federal government across all the political parties, or the Liberal Party, to commit to a plan by the end of this month. Well, unfortunately, we find ourselves in a situation where they couldn't even do that. They couldn't commit to actually coming up with a plan to end the mandates. So yet again, truckers are here in Ottawa doing their work for them. And if you really want to know, there was a vote. It was voted down 185 to 151. And so yet again, the federal government has failed us in our wishes that they represent what we as Canadians need. They couldn't even sit and have an actual plan. So we've come up with a plan of our own. Yesterday, leaders of this Freedom Convoy read this statement that I'm going to take some extracts from. And they outlined several things that we as Canadians feel are very important. And this document wasn't written in isolation. There was a lot of consultation.
Apologies, Tom. Can you speak up?
Okay, sure. And so some people have seen this. I've requested that people share this document on social media. This document was today sent to all federal members of parliament, as well as to the provincial elected officials. And I want to stress something very important. We use words where the government uses rhetoric. We use actions where the government seems to put on a show in Parliament. And they worry about hurt feelings and who called who something nasty or insinuated something. They use rhetoric, we use words in action. Unfortunately, we find ourselves in a case where we do have the power. We as a society have the power, but unfortunately, the government has the force. They own the law enforcement. They own various legal mechanisms to come in and attack us. And so what we are going to do is exercise our power. And what I want to do is really emphasize some important key things that we're asking for in this document. And I'd like to just read them again, because I think it's very vital for Canadians to understand what it is we're asking for. Okay, so what I'd like to do is just read some excerpts and talk about them in a little bit of detail as to why they're so important. So we call upon our governments to restore the rights and freedoms of all Canadians. End all vaccine mandates. And we have 5 things that we would like to see happen. End federal, provincial, and municipal vaccine passports. End masking requirements. End all state of emergency declarations pertaining to our peaceful protests. And not just ours, all of the organic peaceful protests that have sprung up all across Canada and maybe even North America. Provide financial protection for the small businesses harmed by the COVID restrictions. Respect freedom of choice without discrimination. That's pretty important. Respect freedom of choice without discrimination. Far too often we see politicians make platitudes and great soundbite type of speeches about inclusion and acceptance in this country, except for when citizens disagree with what it is that they wish to see. I'm going to continue on because the two final points to this are what I believe in the interest of all Canadians, no matter which side of this debate you come down on. Furthermore, Canadians want assurance that our governments will not repeat the same mistake again. We propose the following steps be taken to ensure this. 1. Supreme Court of Canada review of government actions. We need to know whether our rights under the Charter mean anything. We call upon the federal government to initiate a constitutional reference question to the Supreme Court of Canada about the constitutional validity of the COVID laws and restrictions. 2. A public inquiry of government's response to COVID. Some of you may not be old enough to remember the Somalia inquiries in the early 90s, but I am. I watched it. I knew people that were part of that inquiry. And this is what we're calling for: a public, open, transparent, televised inquiry into the actions of all governments across this country. As a matter of national importance, Canadians call upon the federal government to appoint a fully independent and impartial public inquiry on the government's handling of COVID responses. We need to know what went wrong. What caused governments to so easily trample our rights and freedoms and cause so much harm to our people and our nation? Since the federal members of parliament cannot even agree to sit down and come up with a plan, we've drafted it for you. For the inquiry to be effective, the following conditions must be considered. The inquiry members are to be selected by an all-party parliamentary process. It must contain a thorough examination of the science, internal communications, policy responses, and the consequences. It must be commenced by March 20th, 2020. And finally, it must be made public in the interest of transparency. We do not believe that this is an extraordinary demand. We believe that this is the very basic thing or response or plan or action that we as Canadians should be demanding from our government. This convoy did not lock down businesses, put masks on children, stop people from going to hospitals. This convoy didn't create violence in the streets here. We had bouncy castles. This convoy didn't stop you from seeing your loved ones at Christmas and tell you to not hug them. But I've never been hugged so much in my life since I've been here in Ottawa. We are the citizens of this country, and the people in Parliament work for us. If they are to truly claim that they are public servants, it is high time that they actually start serving the public. We're tired. We would like to go home. But to go back to my earlier point about having power versus having force, we are seeing the City Council of Ottawa go into complete chaos. Members of the Police Services Board have been fired. The new acting chief of Ottawa has declined to come to this city. Morale amongst all police forces across Canada is at an all-time low. Same with the Canadian Armed Forces. Nobody who is in a position to use force wants to come here to Ottawa and use things like sound cannons and tear gas on us. But make no mistake, Ottawa right now is a restricted zone. Nobody can come in or out of this city right now. The local law enforcement with the RCMP have erected large fences all around Parliament Hill on the front lawn with the intention we believe, tomorrow to start making arrests. And that's where we will be held in protest, right on the front steps of Parliament. So, Mr. Trudeau, if you are looking for your Tiananmen Square moment here in your nation's capital, the world is going to see that tomorrow, or whenever it is you decide to send in your brown shirt Gestapo to come in and arrest ordinary Canadians that are just here fighting to assert the freedoms that you don't actually have the power to take away if we're going to call ourselves a democracy. So for those of you trying to get into the city of Ottawa tomorrow, please, we welcome you. It will be difficult, but make the effort if you can. And for those of you who are law enforcement and maybe you watch this tonight, this is your moment. This is your opportunity right now, tonight, to give yourself a gut check and honestly answer the question for yourself. If I do this tonight, if I do this tomorrow to ordinary citizens, what will I be asked to do to Canadian citizens 2 years from now? The choice is for you, law enforcement. Are you going to uphold the charter? Or are you going to just worry about paying your mortgage today, this week, and putting food on your family this week? But what about tomorrow? What about when it's your children? What about when it's your grandchildren? What about when it's your family? Right now, you don't have skin in the game, so you think. But if you believe that, you're wrong. You have skin in the game. It's your children's future. And if you don't understand that, please don't ever apply to become a detective if you can't understand the big picture. So in closing, I would just like to say this. Every day we've been here, the only easy day has been yesterday. And it gets more uncomfortable day after day. 2 of our members of the leadership team have been arrested for mischief. They are currently being incarcerated right now as we speak. We are not deterred. We are not afraid. We will stay here until the government of Canada acts like the government of Canada should. Thank you.
Thank you. And can you just introduce who you are? People are asking here.
Yeah, my name is Tom Marazzo. I'm a retired military officer. I served both regular force and in the reserves for 25 years total. I retired a few years ago, and then I became a software teacher at Georgian College in Barrie, where I was fired for having the belief that I could publicly ask questions about the COVID-19 mandates that were imposed on us as employees in September. And I chose to publicly, and I don't mean to the general public, but internal to the college, question the legality of these mandates. And within a few days, I was fired from my position with cause.
Okay. And so give just a quick high level of where people in Ottawa, these truckers parked. What is their marching orders? What are they doing?
I'm not in a position to answer that question simply because we are aware of the law enforcement plan for us tonight. And every trucker, I sat in a room yesterday, and I am, to be clear, I am only one small person in a very large organized wheel. I am one of the volunteers. That's all. I'm not important. I'm not more important than any of the other leadership. The most important people here right now are the truckers, the ones sitting in their trucks right now. And we have chosen to give all of the risks that we believe that they may face. And we have left it to them to make choices for themselves. And this is the problem. There can be no government that constantly thinks that they know better than individual humans in this country, knows their rights, and takes away their decision to decide for themselves. So we have chosen to allow the truck drivers the opportunity to stay in their trucks for the night or to go to another location. That is their choice. They will make it themselves. They won't be told what to do.
And what is the most meaningful thing people on this live can do right now?
I believe the most meaningful thing you can do is express your feelings to your elected members of federal and provincial parliament. And I also think that if you have the ability to come to Ottawa, because you have a right, and if you've been watching any of the lawyers speak about the legal ramifications of the War Measures Act, also prettied up and known as the Emergency Act, you'll clearly see that your attendance here in the city is not a violation of any of the orders that were given under the Emergency Act. So if you want to come to Ottawa, it's your nation's capital. You come to Ottawa. This is supposed to be a free country. Exercise your rights.
Thank you.
Can you just repeat who's been arrested so far?
I believe it was Tamara and Chris that were arrested for mischief.
And when you say people coming in and out of Ottawa, you just mean the district that's been cornered off, not all of Ottawa.
Not all of Ottawa. The downtown core around Wellington and just south, heading towards the 417 highway. So it's mostly the inner core where the trucks are currently parked.
So people can come to Ottawa and just find their way down.
Find your way in.
Find
You
your
know,
way
it's
in.
a path of least resistance for water.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and let me just say this one thing. I saw this phenomenal. I may have said this already, but I saw this really phenomenal sign on the weekend, and it said that the truth doesn't mind questions, but lies do. We have a lot of questions, and I'd like to get them answered. So starting on 20th of March, I would really like to see a lot of people being held accountable and justify the decisions that they've made that have put our lives into such carnage.
And we're just getting I'm getting tons of feedback that Tamara wasn't arrested. So
Okay.
I do know for sure it's Chris
Okay,
Barber.
I can confirm that Chris was arrested. I do know that for a fact. I'm very happy if Tamara was not arrested. I'm thrilled about that.
Mm-hmm.
And I know that Tamara, had that been the case, like myself, I am prepared. I do expect that at some point the bullies are going to come out and I may be arrested. If I'm not, that's fine. Maybe they don't do it today, maybe they do it 2 weeks from now, 3 weeks from now. It doesn't matter. There's a legal mechanism in this country, and I'm fully prepared to engage with the legal system. I have broken no laws. I've done nothing wrong. It's up to the law enforcement if they want to make martyrs of all the people that are here as part of this protest. That's up to them. They make that call.
We understand there's going to be a vote in the Senate as well, so
Yes.
would you encourage others to reach out to their
Reach out.
senators?
Absolutely. Reach out to your senators. Reach out to your members of parliament. We are all keenly aware that in this province, there's an election in June. Okay? But we are also keenly aware that this next election in June will be about the lesser of evils. Okay? My prediction, Doug Ford will get elected because nobody has faith in any other of the other mainstream parties here. So what are we going to be left with? The devil we know or the devil we don't? And from what I'm seeing, the other political parties in this province of Ontario have been calling for stricter lockdowns. It's sad. It's sad that these people actually look themselves in the mirror and call themselves public servants, because they're not. They're bullies. When they cannot move people to follow, when they cannot inspire people, they can't lead. So what do? They declare emergencies, they give themselves special powers and more money, and they enact legislation meant to further restrict those who don't agree with them. That's not Canadian. That's not a free society. That's not a democracy. That's a bully. That's what that is. And it's happening all across this country. And we're sick and tired of it. So I'm sorry for the people of Ottawa who feel inconvenienced about truckers being here, fighting for your rights and your freedoms. I'm sorry that you are inconvenienced. We get a lot of support from the people of Ottawa, a tremendous amount of support. But I'm starting to believe that there is this this fictitious Ottawa citizen out there that's upset with this convoy. Crime is down 90%. We shovel the driveways. We protect the monuments. We pick up garbage. We put it at collection points. We put salt on the roads. We shovel the war memorial. We have veterans standing there 24/7 protecting those sacred monuments for us. Not the city, not the elected officials. We are doing that. Okay? Our beef is with the federal government, but we're doing everything we can to respect the people of Ottawa. But I do apologize if you have moved to your nation's capital, the center of protest. You don't move beside an airport and then complain about airplane noise. I'm sorry.
Thank you.
Thank you.